tuning in to our podcast. We are coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Cunliffe. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
That's right, and High Street is definitely one of my favorites.
So today we'll be talking about the LaFrance block and building. So tell us about the LaFrance block.
All right, so these two buildings are used to be across the street of High Street from each other, the fifth block up from north to south. Essentially one half a block to the south of the Appleton Street crossing. The LaFrance block was made in 1909. It was a building that was made to house a theater and also house a few stores. And so today we're going to talk about what was inside that building and what's becoming or what becoming and its companion across the street. All right, so what was in it? The Grand Theater was in there. It was a theater that was truly what a stage theatrical performances could be put in there. And the whole block, again, was made in 1906, and it was going high from 1907, 1908, so forth. And the people loved going there because it had so much going on for itself. It would put on not only Nickelodeon movies, it would put on vaudeville performances, it would put on Shakespearean level plays. And since a lot of these kind of old time productions took a lot of people, across the way there was the LaFrance building, which I'll talk about. It's not there also. So this beautiful Grand Theater existed, had a theater officially from 1909 to 1919. And it was such that it would have a lot of big performances happen there. It even had a summertime tent across the street where summertime plays could be put on, and they shared that with the other theater that was up here called the Empire. Now the Grand Theater at 407 High Street would have the typical Sunday matinees and the Sunday evening concerts. They would have movies, especially Nickelodeon style movies on Mondays through Fridays. And it never graduated into the big screen kind of productions because sadly in 1919 it burned to the ground and it was never replaced. So the theater lasted there only for about 11 years and the whole building only for about 13 years. But in that short span, they got a lot of things. They had musical concerts there. They had military-style bands come in. And so it was a great place to be. There was a lot of competition, though, around Holyoke.
And tell us about the LaFrance building.
Okay, across the street, there was a very high building. And most people would know this as being the Essex building. The LaFrance building was at 400 High Street. It was built in 1907, and it was built in what was called the tripartite style or the American Renaissance style. That means it had three bands across it. It was a very glorious look to it. It was a very high building, I think it was 8 stories high. And most of the people that stayed there, it functioned as a hotel. Most of the people that stayed there were people that were with the musical groups or the theatrical groups that were playing in the Grand Theater or the Empire Theater. They were two buildings apart from each other, these two majestic theaters. And you needed lots of space for people because they were very much people dependent back then. You couldn't just put on a film and have only a few people do that. You needed big productions with not only theatrical players or musical people, sometimes both. You also need stage hands, sound people, ushers, so forth. And a lot of people had to stay for like a week at a time here, and they rove across the United States doing this. So this hotel, which LaFrance built, or Hotel Essex, was very, very important. Another thing was that there was an architect that lived there. His name was LaFrance, and he had his building there. And he named both buildings after himself. And he used the first 2 floors of this LaFrance building, or Hotel Essex, to run his architectural firm. So this building was totally filled up.
And before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org, and there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. They're also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, tell us about the Grand Theater.
Okay, both the Empire Theater and the Grand Theater were, in all sense of the words, very grand places. They would have the sculptured look that you expect. They're almost like an opera house look. They're almost like the New York Opera House, but much smaller scale. And so they'd have that oval and towards the middle, and then go upwards with seating on 4 different floors. So you could have great views from most of the location. Now, sadly, neither of them are there, and so you can't get a, and I don't think that even an inside picture exists of either one. But an outside picture exists of both the Empire and the Grand. In fact, one picture exists showing both at the same time. Now, we're mostly talking about the Grand. It was nothing up to the Empire Theater's level, but it was still a very beautiful place, and it was a place that you could have all kinds of productions, including music, opera, theatrical performances. You had those mezzanines. You had that beautiful big stage in the front. And so it's very sad that it doesn't exist, and we'll talk about that.
So, thank you, Robert. I'm sorry. What has become of the city block?
Okay, the whole city block, half of it's okay, but the side on which the back of the Congregational Church is where the Grand and the Empire were, and they're both gone. In 1919, the Grand Theater had a big fire and was never replaced. The Empire Theater, further up, it also had a catastrophe, a fire in its back, and it was never replaced also. The Summer Theater that was around when both those were around also is gone. And the Essex Hotel, about 8 years ago, or in the year 2023, collapsed. And the story of its collapse made newspapers and news outlets around New England. Because usually you don't have buildings collapse, usually they're being taken down, and when there's signs of distress, they'll be quickly taken down. But it never happened, and the Essex side, its northern side, collapsed into a building that was near its north side. And so both buildings had to be taken down. It was a very sad story. And by the end, Holyoke could not afford to take it down. The $1 million it took to take it down had to come from the state. And so this is very sad. This used to be one of the most important locations of Holyoke. Great theatrical performances would take place there. And yet there's almost no evidence, almost no one knows that. There's still a few buildings left there, such as the senior building and such as the Dean furniture stores, and those are still being occupied, but mostly this is a very empty place.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. And you can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltours.org. And you can email him directly to inquire about private tours or find any more information at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to check out his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.